think one of the worst things is realizing as a symptomatic celiac that you got glutened. So if you got gluten during this holiday season, if you got glutened during the holidays, from one celiac to another, it happens to the best of us. I'm so sorry, and I hope that this video helps reassure you and gives you some things to potentially look at and think about as you recover from this glutening. Which, again, I'm so sorry. By the way, if you're new here, my name is Taylor Silverduke. I'm a registered dietitian specializing in celiac disease, and I've also been living with celiac for over 10 plus years. And again, in this video, I'm hoping to provide you with some comfort. I'm hoping to provide you with some support as you're recovering from getting glutened this holiday season. So here's what you need to know. I want to start off with a reminder that it can really suck to get glutened as a celiac, and it can be really easy to beat yourself up, to feel like, why haven't you gotten this down? How could you be so careless? Whatever the voice is telling you in your head that might be being extremely mean, I want to remind you that you have the rest of your life to master gluten-free living. And while, yes, the sooner that you master it and the sooner that you're able to avoid gluten and not get glutened as often, the better. It's not the end of the world, and it's not the end of your healing journey if you get exposed to gluten. I know a lot of people are afraid that they've undone all their healing, that, they're never going to, they're going to have to start all the way from scratch when it comes to getting glutened, and they're worried they ruined all their progress, and that's not how it works. You did not undo all of your healing. You don't have to start completely from scratch when it comes to healing your gut. You likely did do some damage, but it's not going to be at the extent that you were at when you were diagnosed and you had been eating gluten daily multiple times a day to get to that level of damage. So you have the rest of your life to live gluten-free and master it, and you did not undo all of your healing with this exposure, but you likely did do some damage. So be gentle with yourself, be kind with yourself, and also know that, no one is perfect. It can feel like, you're failing as a celiac, that so many people are doing it better than you, and no one is perfect. There are no perfect celiacs. No one's doing it better than you. You're doing the best you can with your circumstances, your resources, what have you. Really try not to compare yourself. I know some celiacs will say they've never been glutened or they've only been glutened once. And honestly, great for them. And I find with most of my clients that's unrealistic, especially living in a gluten-centered world, a gluten-centered food system, a gluten-centered culture. All we can do is our best, and it's okay if you get gluten. Not saying I'm condoning getting glutened, but you can't do anything about it. No one is perfect. It's likely going to happen. It's unrealistic to expect that it's never going to happen, and all we can do is learn from that and move on. So no one is perfect, and getting gluten is likely going to be a part of the human experience of being a human living with celiac disease. And I know you know that, but I hope that a fellow celiac and also a celiac dietitian telling you that potentially makes you feel even the tiniest bit better, as you may be potentially beating yourself up. If you're anything like me, it's really hard not to beat yourself up when this happens. So if you're struggling with being hard on yourself, I want to remind you first that being hard on yourself is not making it any easier for your body to heal. It's not making things any better. It's literally likely making things worse. It's really hard to heal if you're constantly berating yourself, you're constantly stressed about it. So trying to take a step back and being kinder to yourself can be helpful. So some things that you might ask yourself if you're really struggling with being hard on yourself, potentially berating yourself, are how can you be kinder to yourself right now? What would a friend tell you right now, or what would you tell a friend, and what do you need to hear? I hope that maybe some of the things that I've already said so far in this video have been helpful and potentially maybe have been something that you needed to hear, but is there anything else that you might need to hear, something to potentially make you feel better? So now that we've got that out of the way, we're hopefully being a little bit more gentle on yourself. I want to talk about the importance of trying to identify what gluten do you. Especially if you're new to your celiac diagnosis, or you're just teasing out, what is gluten exposure versus what is GI distress or foodborne illness or something else. It can be really, really difficult to tease that out. And I want to encourage you again to be gentle with yourself as you're learning how to do that. But also to remind you, if you can't quickly identify it, if you're going over what happened, you're going over the scenario, and you just aren't sure what it was, don't drive yourself crazy over it. Stressing over what happened and what could have caused it or what you should have done differently, like just building in that like spiral of stress is not helpful or conducive to support your healing. So if that's something you're going through, try to let it go. I mean, obviously, I would like for everyone to learn from the situation if they got glutened. Obviously, it's helpful to be able to learn from it so that you don't potentially get glutened in the future. And if you can't figure it out or you're just driving yourself mad trying to figure it out, try to learn from the situation. If you can't, move on. And if you can, also move on. There's no point in kind of like dwelling on it, ruminating on it. And I say that as an ADHDer who has ruminating tendencies. I know you can't necessarily control it always or fully, and if it's possible, being able to move on, being able to let it go, or reminding yourself like, yep, that's what glutened me, and I know next time I'm gonna look out for this, and then like moving on, telling yourself like, we're over it, I'm over it, like I'm gonna move on now, like this is it, this is the end of the spiral. If you're able to do that, that can be really helpful and support healing. Give yourself less of a distraction and more supporting that healing. So I hope that this is reassuring. If you were gluten this holiday season, if you are feeling like you're really stressed about it, you're really upset, I also want to acknowledge like it can also be a completely other story and a completely emotionally draining or emotionally exhausting or emotionally upsetting situation, even mentally upsetting, if you were glutened by a loved one, if you trusted someone to keep you safe, or if you trusted people to keep you safe or to do something and you got glutened anyways. That can be extremely deflating, defeating, and if that happened to you, I'm holding a lot of space for you, and it can be really hard to know what to do in those situations. So I'm sending and extending a lot of hugs. I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong answer to how to handle that. And I think it's worth kind of thinking about like how often have they been able to keep you safe versus not. And like no one's perfect, not even you are perfect in this. So is this something where you feel like you can repair the situation and rebuild trust? Or is this a situation where maybe you need to start not delegating to them and potentially finding someone else or leaning on other people who you feel like you can trust? All of that said, though, it is a tough situation to be in. I have been in it. It's not the best. And I'm holding a lot of space for that too, if that's contributing to, an already stressful, overwhelming period when you realize you've been glutened and you're trying to recover from it as a symptomatic celiac. As we wrap this up, I do want to quickly say that I do have a gluten-free recovery roadmap. This is something that I offer that talks about what happens when you're gluten so you understand what's going on, why symptoms are occurring, and what to do about them. I also talk about what to avoid after exposure so you can prevent worsening your symptoms if you are a symptomatic celiac. I've got some tips for potentially relieving common symptoms so that you could potentially have as speedy of a recovery as possible. And I also list some gluten-free over-the-counter medications, some recovery meal ideas, and I also have a gluten exposure tracker in this as well, so you can kind of track any patterns, see where you tend to often potentially do some risky behaviors, or what is the most common thing that's glutening you, so you can learn from patterns and mistakes. So if you're interested in this gluten recovery roadmap that walks you through like what's going on in your gut, what's actually happening, what to expect, and why symptoms might occur, what to do to support them, and all of those other bonuses, the link is in my description box for you to grab it. It's $47. It's got some educational videos, some handouts, some printables. You don't have to buy it, but I do offer it if it's something that you feel like you would benefit from, or something that you feel like would be helpful to have in your toolkit if you're symptomatic celiac looking for extra support and you feel like you're not getting it from other people. So if you're interested, again, link down below, but please feel no pressure. It's only there if you feel like you want it or need it. And all of that said, if you found this helpful, if you found this comforting, if you found it reassuring, please hit the like button and subscribe for more dietitian related content. I hope that the rest of your holidays as they continue to be smoother, and I wish you as speedy of a recovery as possible. Getting gluten sucks, so I just have the most empathy. And all of that said, my name is Taylor Silverduke, registered dietitian specializing in celiac disease, and I will see you when I see you.